everyone. I would like to call this meeting of the Public Accounts Committee to order and welcome everyone in attendance. My name is Irfan Sabir, the MLA for Calgary-Buller-McCall and Chair of the committee. I would invite members, guests, and LAO staff at the table to introduce themselves. We will begin to my right.
Garth Rosal, MLA, Vermilion, Lloydminster, Wainwright.
Sonia Johnston, Assistant Deputy Minister and Senior Financial Officer for Assisted Living and Social Services.
Dennis Cooley, Deputy Minister, Assisted Living and Social Services.
David Williams, Assistant Deputy Minister for Housing with Assisted Living and Social Services.
Good morning, Doug Wiley, Auditor General.
Good morning, Patty Hayes, Assistant Auditor General.
Marlon Schmidt, Edmonton Gold Bar.
Marie Renaud, St. Albert.
Bonnie Govindarajan, Parliamentary Council.
Warren Huffman, Committee Clerk.
Thank you. We will now go to those joining us online. Please introduce yourself as Warren calls your names.
Honorable Ms. Armstrong Hominick.
Jackie Armstrong Hominick, MLA, Fort Saskatchewan, Vegreville.
Mr. Yao.
Kenny Yao, Fort McMurray, Wood Buffalo.
Mr. Ellingson. You're muted, Mr. Ellingson.
Apologies, Court Ellingson, Calgary Foothills.
No problem. Mrs. Johnson.
Jennifer Johnson, MLA for Lacombe-Panoka.
And Dr. Maslin.
Good morning, Philip Masseline, Clerk Assistant, Executive Director of Parliamentary Services.
Thank you. I would note for the record the following substitutions. Mr. Yahoo for Mr. Lunty, Mr. Van Dyken. I don't see Mr. Van Dyken. We have two more substitutions, and I will, I guess, introduce themselves once they join us.
Ms. Sawyer's here.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Mrs. Sawyer for Ms. De Jong.
She can introduce herself as well.
And you can introduce yourself, Ms. Sawyer.
Good morning, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me. Let me get these headphones to put in my office. Yeah, I'm sitting in for Emily DeYoung and looking forward to learning a little bit more about PAC. So thanks for having me.
Welcome to the committee. You can introduce yourself. Just state your name and constituency.
Hey, I get to learn something new. Apologies. Sarah Sawyer, MLA for Old Didsbury.
Thank you. A few housekeeping items to address before we turn to the business at hand. Please note that the microphones are operated by Hansard staff. Committee proceedings are live streamed on the internet and broadcast on Alberta Assembly TV. The audio and video stream and transcripts of meeting can be accessed via the Legislative Assembly website. Those participating by video conference are encouraged to please turn on your camera while speaking and mute your microphone when not speaking. Members participating virtually who wish to be placed on a speaker list are asked to email or send a message to the committee clerk, and members in the room are asked to please signal to the chair. Please set your cell phones and other devices to silent for the duration of the meeting, and comments should flow through the chair at all times. Number 2, approval of agenda. Honorable members, are there any changes or addition to the agenda? If not, would a member like to move that the Standing Committee on Public Accounts approve the proposed agenda as distributed for its October 14, 2025 meeting? Moved by Member Schmidt. Any discussions on the motion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The motion is carried. I can see that Mr. Van Dyken has joined, and I would note for the record that he's substituting for Honorable Mr. McDougall. So, MLA Van Dyken, can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, Glenn Van Dyken, the MLA for Athabasca, Barhead, Westlock.
Thank you. Moving on to approval of minutes. We have the draft minutes from the May 13, 2025 meeting of the committee. Do members have any errors or omissions to note? Seeing none, would a member like to move that the Standing Committee on Public Accounts approve the minutes as distributed of its meeting held on May 13, 2025? Moved by Emily Rosewall. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All in favor online? Any opposed
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed online? Motion is carried. Today, the committee is reviewing the Auditor General's process to assess and manage the condition of affordable housing audit report. This is the committee's second audit focus review it is doing this year. And having reviewed the Auditor General Surface Water Management Report before on April 29th. In this report, the Auditor General reviewed the process in place that the department uses to assess and manage the condition of its provincially owned affordable housing. As previous annual reports had indicated, that there were declining conditions in housing units and over $1 billion in delayed maintenance. We have officials from the Office of the Auditor General and the Ministry of Assisted Living and Social Service joining us today. To begin, I would like to invite the Auditor General to start off our review by providing opening remarks on his audit report. Mr. Wiley, you have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Chair and committee members. It's great to be with you this morning. I'm just going to provide some very brief comments on the audit, and then I'm going to turn it over to Patty Hayes, who introduced herself. She's the Assistant Auditor General who had oversight of this project, and she'll walk you through more of the recommendations and the findings in more detail. Chair, affordable housing is about more than just shelter. When people have a safe, affordable place to live, they're better able to care for their families, contribute to their communities, and participate in the economy. But affordability alone isn't enough. Quality matters as well. Homes need to be safe, adequately maintained, and built to last. When housing falls into disrepair, it undermines the very stability it's meant to provide. It also becomes more expensive to fix over time. At the time we conducted our work, the province owned over 27,000 housing units across 2,800 facilities within the province. At that time as well, those assets were valued at more than $2.3 billion. Previous ministry annual reports showed declining conditions and over $1 billion in deferred maintenance. Our audit objective was to determine whether the department had effective processes to assess and manage the condition of provincially owned affordable housing. We looked at the systems and practices in place between April 2021 and March of 2023. Our report made 3 recommendations to the department. First, to maintain facility condition information. Second, improve oversight processes. And third, implement performance measures. The department accepted all 3 of these recommendations, and based on the timelines provided, it appears as though the department is targeting full implementation by March of 2027. In summary, committee, our work is very simple, and that is, as I'd mentioned, there was over $2.3 billion in assets. We were looking to determine whether the tools and processes that are available were being used to manage those assets, to provide the services they were intended to. At this time, I'm going to ask Patty to discuss the recommendations and findings in more detail.
Thank you, Doug. Good morning, Chair. So with the time I have left, I'd just like to briefly walk you through the key findings from each of the 3 areas that we focused on in our audit. I'll start with the first area we looked at regarding housing facility condition information. So we found the department does not have complete and accurate information on the condition of its provincially owned housing facilities. The department used to receive assessments from independent experts that provided detailed condition-related information for each housing facility. These independent assessments also provided the department with a score that could be used to categorize the housing facility into one of three categories, either good, fair, or poor condition. However, the department stopped receiving these assessments in November 2019 and has not replaced that process. As a result, when we looked at the housing database, we found that half the facilities had assessments that were over 10 years old. Almost one quarter had assessments that were 5 to 10 years old, and the remaining quarter did not have any assessments at all. Without this information, the department may not be able to keep the facilities in adequate condition. Maintenance issues may worsen, creating safety concerns for tenants and leading to higher repair or replacement costs in the future. So we made a recommendation that the department obtain complete and accurate information on the condition of its provincially owned housing facilities. Our second area of focus was on the department's oversight of maintenance. At the time of our audit, the department was overseeing approximately 80 different operators who managed provincially owned housing on their behalf. These operators are governed by legislation that requires them to maintain housing facilities in adequate condition. We noted the department does not have an overall maintenance strategy to guide these operators. There are no manuals available to support operators when it comes to determining what it means to keep the housing in adequate condition and to guide them to ensure they comply with industry codes and standards. Without a clear maintenance strategy, each operator must independently decide how to identify and manage capital maintenance needs, which can create safety issues and inconsistencies in how facilities are maintained across the province. We also found the department does not have adequate support for how it prioritizes the thousands of capital maintenance requests that it receives each year from the operators. There is a prescribed methodology for prioritizing capital maintenance projects in government. However, the department did not fully follow the process. We also noted a lack of support for scores that changed throughout the process, and in cases where higher scoring projects were not selected, while lower scoring projects were. Management told us they consider other information such as previous requests from operators and first-hand knowledge they have of facilities. However, management could not provide evidence of these considerations to support their decisions. Inconsistent prioritization processes increase the risk that highest priority maintenance projects are not selected, and that facilities may fall into disrepair, eventually increasing costs unnecessarily. Based on our findings, we made a second recommendation that the department improve its oversight processes by implementing an overall maintenance strategy and ensuring capital maintenance projects are prioritized consistently with supported rationale. The final area we looked at was the reporting of facility conditions. We found the department does not have performance measures related to the condition of its housing. Up until 5 years ago, the department did have one performance measure that reported the proportion of facilities in good, fair, and poor condition. The last year this measure was published showed a 5-year trend that indicated declining conditions. For example, if you look to page 7 of our report where we reproduce this measure, it shows the proportion of housing in the good category decreased from 39% in 2015-16 down to 18% in 2019-20. After 2020, the department stopped reporting this measure and has not established any other external or internal measures that describe housing conditions. Without this information, neither the department nor Albertans will know the extent of work required to improve or maintain the housing facilities and to ensure Albertans who need the housing support are living in safe and adequately maintained facilities. Our final recommendation to the department is to implement performance measures to report on the condition of its housing facilities. As Doug mentioned, the department has accepted our recommendations, and we are currently in discussions with management regarding the details of their implementation plans. So I'd like to close off by thanking the management group here today for their time, cooperation, and assistance during our audit. And this concludes our opening comments, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I would now like to offer officials from the Ministry of Assisted Living and Social Services the opportunity to provide any remarks on the audit report, not exceeding 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Dennis Cooley. I'm the Deputy Minister of Assisted Living and Social Services. Joining me today are Sonia Johnson, Assistant Deputy Minister of Corporate Corporate Finance and Accountability, as well as Sonia is the Senior Financial Officer for the ministry. I'm also joined by David Williams, Assistant Deputy Minister of Housing. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss the department's response to the Office of the Auditor General's performance audit, processes to assess and manage the conditions of affordable housing facilities, covering the 2 fiscal years between 2021 and 2023. As you're likely aware, the findings and recommendations were made to the Ministry of Seniors, Community and Social Services and now fall under the Ministry of Assisted Living and Social Services. The ministry focuses on serving the needs of vulnerable citizens, a role Alberta's government takes very seriously. The hardworking staff across the department are committed to ensuring supports and services are always in place for Albertans. These supports include affordable housing, of which there is a growing need across the province as more people call Alberta home. The department appreciates the Auditor General's report and has accepted the recommendations. The department is also pleased to share that many of the recommendations align with measures previously underway. For the benefit of all members, there was an affordable housing review panel completed in 2020. A panel made up of experts with diverse perspectives and knowledge on affordable housing made 19 recommendations to the department, and all recommendations were accepted. Some of the recommendations focused on improving capital maintenance funding, establishing an expedited process for project approvals, and setting benchmark timelines for projects. The panel's work helped inform the development of Stronger Foundations, Alberta's 10-year strategy to improve and expand affordable housing, which is central to the department's approach to affordable housing. The auditor's first recommendation was to obtain complete and accurate information on the conditions of its housing facilities. At the time of the performance audit, the department began working with stakeholders to complete building condition assessments on 146 buildings owned by the Alberta Social Housing Corporation and initiated 252 additional assessments. This is in addition to the 23 assessments led by housing providers or paid for by the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation. The department continues to work with housing providers on these assessments, ensuring priority projects receive funding and on improving internal processes and data collection. This will provide a detailed snapshot of the properties and the future work required to maintain them. The auditor also recommended that the department improve its oversight by completing an overall maintenance strategy and ensuring capital maintenance projects are prioritized consistently with supported rationale. Under Stronger Foundations, the department is developing maintenance and redevelopment plan for all government-owned assets and making improvements on the capital maintenance and renewal program. An external review was conducted in 2020, overlapping with the time frame of the performance audit. The external review reached similar findings. Given the need for increased access to affordable housing, Alberta's government also prioritized suite renewals to ensure that all available units were available to rent for Albertans in need. The department has also enhanced training and documentation to grow the CMR program and to meet the requirements of building occupants. As part of their review, the consultant met with stakeholders, both internal and external, who are key contributors to the success of the CMR program. The final recommendation was to implement performance measures to report on the condition of its housing facilities. The department is developing a new performance measures as part of a long-term CMR strategy, which includes a 5-year schedule for building conditions assessments. This program would allow the Alberta Social Housing Corporation to better understand the current and future state of provincially owned affordable housing units. This information will also be used to determine budget requests as part of the capital planning cycle. In closing, Mr. Chair, it is our mandate to provide Albertans with an affordable place to call home. The ministry continues to work hard to make that a reality. Thank you, and I'm happy to take questions.
And thank you. As it has been few months since the committee's last audit focus meeting on April 29th, I would like to reiterate the scope of our review today. Members should, as always, focus on the Auditor General's report and its recommendations, the ministry's related action plan, and affordable housing within the province generally, and refrain from asking policy questions. Finally, before we get into the question and answer portion, I will remind members that as part of our audit focus meetings, the committee is using a question and answer format that allows members members to ask a question and related follow-up question, and alternates between caucuses as much as possible. I will be keeping a list of speakers, so if you would like to speak, please signal to me or to the committee clerk. I will now open the floor to members for questions, and we will start with the official opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Alberta Housing Act stipulates that housing needs to be built, or needs to be suitable for human habitation, and the associated regulation says that suitable means not needing major repair or lacking necessary services and facilities. So given that collecting complete and accurate information on the condition of housing is essential for the department's ability to comply with its own legislation, I'm wondering if the department can tell us why the collection of this information ended in 2019 and who made that decision.
Building conditions assessments were discontinued in 2019 by Alberta Infrastructure, in part due to the issues about accessing buildings during the pandemic. Most assets were not regularly evaluated, which meant facility condition information, or FCI data, was of limited value to the department. FCI was discontinued as a performance measure because it did not reflect the true condition or value of the government's buildings. CMR projects are prioritized using the methodology approved by Treasury Board and Finance, which does not require FCI data but can be used to supplement analysis. However, this did not mean the department did not know the state of its buildings. The department works closely with housing providers that operate affordable housing out of its buildings. They provide updates on a scheduled reporting cycle on the building's conditions and report to us if any major work is required. Housing providers also do approved regular maintenance to preserve and maintain the building. They are also trusted partners in this work. At the time of the review and report release, the department had already begun implementing this recommendation. The ministry has restarted building condition assessments, which are conducted by a third party. The department has been working with stakeholders, internal and external, to complete BCAs for 146 Alberta Social Housing Corporation owned buildings, as well as initiated another 252 BCAs. This doesn't include additional BCAs being led by housing providers or being paid for by the CMHC. Thank you.
Well, I want to start my follow-up question by reminding the department that the department stopped collecting this information in 2019. The pandemic didn't start until 2020. So it's important for us to establish trust in this committee. If we are to believe your answers, you have to give us realistic timelines and reasons for those discussions. So to say that you ended collecting that information because you couldn't get into the buildings because of the pandemic, when this process stopped 6 months before the pandemic even started, is a bit hard to swallow. So on this issue of building condition assessments, BCAs, if I understand the department's response correctly, it's the department's position that collecting these BCAs was a suitable replacement for the facility condition index, which, according to the department, was no longer a reasonable measure of facility condition state. When the Auditor General reviewed what the department was doing, they already determined that this was not acceptable. So why is it the department's position still that building condition assessments, as currently being conducted, are going to meet the Auditor General's requirements when they've already reviewed what you were doing. This has been in, these building condition assessments were underway for at least a year before the Auditor General started their review and determined that you didn't have adequate condition assessments in place. So what additional work are you going to do to make sure that the Auditor General's recommendation is met?
Thank you for the question. I'll turn that question to David Williams.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. So just in terms of the timeline and process, so we stopped receiving the information in 2019 from the Department of Infrastructure. As that happened, the pandemic started. So you're right, there was 6 months before it started. We couldn't restart a process of our own during the pandemic because we didn't want to have extra people going into the buildings during the pandemic. In 2021, the strategy came out and said that we needed to have the better information, as was alluded to. Remember, the Auditor General's report covered the period of April 2021 until March 2023. In 2024, we did restart our own building condition assessment process. So the building condition assessments are just done by a third party. So throughout the pandemic, we had assessments of the buildings that were done and completed by our operators and by the experts who are in the building every day. We didn't have an external process, though, to verify, and I think that's what the auditor picked up on, was that there was not a third party to validate the information on building conditions that we were collecting from our operators. So as part of what we released in 2021 was that we had to restart that. We restarted that in 2024. We have begun collecting on a regularized basis all of the information that the auditor has asked us to collect through the building condition assessment. So there's a separation between the building condition assessment, which is the actual report from an engineer, architect, building sort of expert, and the facility condition index. The facility condition index is a mathematical formula that's produced as a result of that. It's influenced by a number of different things, including the cost of repairs and various things, if you look at how the math formula is calculated. So we are working on a replacement performance measure, but that's sort of how the process went. So we stopped getting the information from Alberta Infrastructure, couldn't restart it initially because of the pandemic, began a process to go and do it. We started that in 2024. So it is a very similar process, and I'm sure when the auditor has a chance to review it when we completed the implementation, you'll find that we have a much more accurate and complete and up-to-date information verified by third parties for our buildings.
Malay Rosal.
Thank you very much. I'll expand on it a little bit around the Stronger Foundation strategy. I just on page 2 of the process is to assess the management conditions of affordable housing performance audit report. The background provides a timeline between 2020 and 2023, including the release of the Stronger Foundation strategy in 2021, based on the recommendations of the Affordable Housing Review Panel. I just wanted to have a little more context around the Affordable Housing Review Panel. And what led to the review, and what was the panel asked to consider? What was their kind of mandate?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In 2020, the Affordable Housing Review Panel was led by MLA Mickey Amory. The panel engaged stakeholders to provide advice on how to make the affordable housing system more sustainable while addressing growing need. At the time, the affordable housing system had not been updated in more than 20 years. The panel was asked to consider the role the Government of Alberta plays in providing affordable housing, simplifying or easing regulatory structures that create costs and red tape for housing providers in the current affordable housing system, and finally, innovative approaches that will enable government and its partners to meet increasing demand for affordable housing. The panel consisted of experts with a diversity of perspectives and knowledge on affordable housing, including private and nonprofit operators, housing advocates, policy and academic experts, and real estate investors and developers. The panel heard from almost 160 individuals, organizations, and companies through engagement sessions and received more than 120 written submissions. The four key principles were identified during the review: bold action, fair and equitable inclusion, one size does not fit all, and efficiency, sustainability, and financial responsibility. Thank you.
19 recommendations. I was just wondering what the most prominent ones that you felt were there, and if you could kind of itemize it for me.
The panel made a total of 19 recommendations, and the government accepted all of the recommendations. As you mentioned, the recommendations inform the development of the Stronger Foundations strategy. I won't go through each of the recommendations, but I want to highlight three in particular. Recommendation 1 was for government to develop a provincial strategic plan for housing with short and long-term objectives aimed at addressing Alberta's affordable housing needs and achieving housing sustainability for all Albertans. Recommendation 3 was to work with housing management bodies to build capacity within the sector, improve and redevelop the affordable housing stock, and improve service delivery to those in need, and prioritize applications for subsidized housing based on local need. And finally, recommendation 15 was for government to improve its approach to capital maintenance funding, including the establishment of an expedited process for project approvals and setting benchmark timelines for project approvals. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move back to MLA Schmidt.
Thank you very much. So, in response to the last, so in the last response that I got from the department, they said that they have hired an external reviewer to conduct these building condition assessments. It sounds like there are some parallel processes that are being conducted by housing operators. My concern is that the last time that data was available, which was already 5 years ago, was that 8% of Alberta Social Housing Corporation facilities were in poor condition and may not even be fit for habitation. So currently, if somebody were living in housing owned by the Alberta Social Housing Corporation that was not fit for habitation, how would the department know about it and address the issue?
Yeah, thank you again for the question. So we have over 80 housing management bodies who provide the landlord role, including ensuring that every inhabited residence is up to and fit for human standards and occupation. They report on any of the maintenance issues to us, as well we receive comments and letters from individuals who do reside in the buildings that we own and operate. We provide constant oversight, so every housing management body we have is assigned a project coordinator within our capital maintenance area who works on a daily basis with all of the operators. So if any issues that do pop up, we address right away. So, for example, lots of, there's some routine aspects to maintenance, but things break unexpectedly. So we're getting into the start of heating season. I was pretty cold this morning on my walk over. When boilers start firing back up again, sometimes we have failures. So we have an emergency process to ensure that in cases where, we have water penetration, no heat, that we address those issues right away. And they're fixed immediately. So there is an emergency process outside of the regular scheduled CMR process, and we do get daily reports on the operations of our buildings to ensure that they do remain safe for habitation.
So can the department provide us with a number, how many emergency reports were made in the 24-25 fiscal year? And how many were addressed? And how many, as a follow-up, how many are waiting to be addressed currently?
Yeah, so we will be able to provide you that shortly.
I understand the capital maintenance and review is a key to ensuring the integrity of the housing facilities through planned repair, replacement, and maintenance. So for the benefit of the committee, could the department provide detailed overview of the capital maintenance and renewal, capital maintenance and renewal, and how the program works? How do you figure, just if you describe how it could work?
Thank you for the question. The Capital Maintenance and Renewal Program provides funding to maintain and upgrade government-owned affordable housing units across the province. It covers renovations and emergency repairs to facilities. Housing management bodies identified priority projects through their annual business plan submissions. The submissions are then reviewed by multiple program experts before they are consolidated into a master list. The department then prioritizes all the project requests received using the criteria established by Treasury Board and Finance and the Department of Infrastructure. These include the impact of failure, the importance of system functionality, condition of the system, the reason for work, and health, life, and safety. The last condition, health, life, and safety, is the overriding criterion. Housing providers are then consulted to confirm project selections and accuracy. The department then submits a final list to Treasury Board and Finance for approval and works closely with housing providers to monitor the progress of the projects until they are completed. Finally, the funding is issued once invoices have been received.
The capital maintenance of I've toured the facilities in my constituency, and there's long-term projects, like the request is made regularly, and then it's not necessary, like it doesn't get approved, so they do it again and it carries on. And so I was, I've been trying to get a handle on how this actually works, and the way I understand it is the housing management body will provide a budget, and if there's a surplus in that budget, they're required to return that to the department. And then when it's audited, if there's an audited surplus, that too happens. But recently that has been able to maintain it so they can do some of their own maintenance. So I'm just wondering, I'm trying to understand the logic of a budgeted surplus being returned to the department and why that happens, and might that help with capital maintenance and renewal if you're able to just leave it with them and carry on. So I guess that's the two questions. If you've got the answer, it's a bit of a different one, but I just wondered if you could help me out there.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair, and through you to the honourable member. Just in terms of the difference with there's a couple of reasons for that. So we do also have so the way on the community housing side the system works is we have operators who have budgeted deficits as well as those who have budgeted surpluses, and so sometimes we use the surpluses to offset the deficits in other areas. So that's part of the reason, sort of a smoothing, if you'd have it across the system, is part of the reason. The other piece goes to, and there are situations where we have allowed operators to retain some of their surplus in order to address operational maintenance issues. So there's a difference between capital maintenance and operational maintenance, and so the money that we allocate, that the surplus, the budgeted surplus and deficits, tend to be on the operational side. So repairs under 5,000 or those that aren't a betterment, they're able to take care of with some of that money. But through the CMR process, we have to deal with the bigger capital projects. So it's not always quite as simple as it looks. Like, it makes a lot of sense initially just to say, let's do this, but there's a few accounting rules that we got to address in the background. But we do work with operators to allow them to retain where they can to address those operational maintenance issues.
Thank you. Emily Marlin Schmidt.
Thank you. So I just want to build on Mr. Rosewell's first question about the capital maintenance and renewal strategy. In your response to his question, you did mention that health, life, and safety was the overriding priority for determining the priorities of these capital maintenance and renewal projects. Now, when the Auditor General reviewed your processes, the department's processes, they found that there was no weighting assigned to any of the capital maintenance and renewal projects that were approved, and that sometime between when it was assessed by the housing operator and when it was finally approved by government, the weightings changed a number of times. Can the department confirm that now in 24-25 that health, life, and safety is the overriding criteria for determining which projects are renewed? And if so, how many projects that affected health, life, and safety were submitted to the department in 24-25? How many were addressed, and what's the backlog of those ones? Because I assume that this is outside of the emergency process that was mentioned before, but still pretty high priority. So I would like a number from the department on the health, life, and safety projects that were submitted that weren't part of this emergency process.
The budget 2024 allocated $35.2 million in CMR investment funding in fiscal year 24-25. CMR program received 3,196 project requests worth $253 million. CMR funded 760 projects with $37.1 million, which impacted 10,354 units. Mr. Chair, with respect to the committee members' question on safety, I'll turn it to my colleague, Mr. Williams, for response.
Yeah, so happy to provide a little bit more detail to the honorable member's question. So just back to his previous question about the emergency projects. So in 24-25, we received 82 requests for $2.4 million in emergency funding, and 100% were funded and addressed at the time. And just to give them a flavor of what we did, of the 760 projects we did again for the 37 million, because I have it in financial numbers here. We did spend 2.5 million on building envelope, 2.6 million on building exterior repairs, $17.1 million on the building interior repairs, which included $15 million in suite renewal funding, $2 million on electrical systems, $1.8 million on elevators, almost 1.5 million on fire safety sprinklers, 1.2 million on grounds maintenance, which would include abating trips and fall hazards, paving, that type of piece. 5.2 million approximately on heating, ventilation, and plumbing. 324,000 on building mechanical systems, and $2.8 million on roofing projects. So it varies, and again, each one of those would have a component of life and safety. So it's the overarching thing, and that's how they get prioritized. So again, the vast majority of projects we do address any life and safety considerations.
So a follow-up question then, can the department respond to the committee in writing with the scores for each of these projects to actually show how the health and safety considerations weighed on the choice? So you had 3,196 project requests. You completed 760 of them. So there are, 2,400 outstanding. I have no idea from your answer how many of those have some sort of important health and safety priority, which was part of my question. So, can you provide a list of how these things were scored and just show us that you are actually prioritizing the health and safety aspects above the other project requests that may or may not have some health and safety aspect to them.
Yeah, and again, just to talk a little bit about the work that we do on sort of the prioritization. So, as you know, as I've alluded to, we receive approximately 3,000 requests from all of the housing management bodies each and every year. Those requests come in through their Appendix D, through their annual business plan submission. And we receive those requests. We then go through a prioritization process. We've asked each of the providers to do a prioritization process following the criteria and the training that we've provided them. They do that. We then go back and assess that as well. And work with the providers and have a back and forth and communicate with them about how the priorities trading scoring should go forward from there. We then take that forward with all of the ranked projects we submitted into Treasury Board, and we do then get the approval from Treasury Board to go ahead with the projects. Throughout the year, as things happen, the listing and the projects that actually get done versus a priority listing sometimes changes, and that happens for a variety of reasons. Weather sometimes limits our ability to do things. Availability of materials, we've had struggle with some of the tariffs. A lot of our windows have recently been coming in from Korea via San Francisco, which has delayed things with the tariff pieces and a couple of other things. So sometimes the final list of what actually gets completed and the list of where we've been prioritizing things get going forward. But we do part of our prioritization is on the feasibility of things to get done. So sometimes you'll see things, and it's just, there are other dependencies on that. So we've had some projects where, we've gone to install a sprinkler system, but the water pressure in the town isn't sufficient in order to fully achieve and do that. So we've had to put in a separate cistern and do other projects. So we have a whole variety of different ways that we go through to do that, including what the envelope of a building can hold, because we can't forget that people live in the houses while these renovations are occurring and the maintenance projects are going. So we want to make sure that we have the ability to what can the building envelope bear at the same time. So all of those factors come into sort of how we adjust in year from along with the prioritization process. And we have, and I can assure the committee that we've taken some steps already, quite a few steps to improve the documentation to be able to explain that.
Thank you. We will go to Armstrong Hamnick, Emily Armstrong Hamnick.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, and good morning, everyone. Chair, through you, as we can see on page 2 of the report, the Affordable Housing Review Panel's recommendations inform the Stronger Foundation strategy in 2021. Could the Deputy Minister describe how the panel's recommendations were considered as part of the strategy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Alberta's government released the Stronger Foundations Affordable Housing Strategy in November of 2021. The strategy maps out the changes needed to provide safe, stable, and affordable housing for an additional 25,000 households over the next 10 years. This is an increase of more than 40% to 82,000 households. The work of the panel directly informed the development of this strategy. Stronger Foundations focuses on 5 key actions: support Albertans most in need, improve access, increase capacity planning and governance, enhance sustainability and efficiency, and finally, enable growth and investment. Recommendation 1 from the panel was to develop a strategic plan for housing. You can see that Appendix B in the Stronger Foundation strategy cross-references all of the panel recommendations and the corresponding action. For example, the Stronger Foundation strategy also commits to developing a maintenance and redevelopment plan for all government-owned assets and to improve CMR processes in Action 5.3. This is related to the panel's recommendation 15. Ensuring high-quality capital maintenance and renewal is part of the government's vision to ensure Albertans have access to safe, affordable housing that meets their needs and promotes quality of life, that the housing system delivers innovative and sustainable options to Albertans in need, and that the housing system serves Albertans now and into the future. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Follow-up?
Thank you, Chair, through you, to the Deputy Minister. Can you, and I know you did a bit of one here, but can you provide an overview and progress report update of the strategy to the committee here, please?
Mr. Chair, the government's ongoing investments in Stronger Foundation aim to address the growing demand for affordable housing by focusing on people, make the affordable housing system easier to navigate for Albertans and give them more options and flexibility in how they meet their housing needs, ensure the sustainability of the programs Albertans rely on, increase housing supply for Indigenous peoples, and use partnership approaches to leverage Alberta's dollars for new investment from partners to maximize federal funding. Since the launch of Stronger Foundations in November of 2021, the government has provided rent assistance to 3,506 additional households, as well as funding to build 3,301 new affordable housing units. Alberta's government is on track to meet its demands, to meet its targets as spending continues to ramp up in coming years. Since 2019, Alberta's government has also made many improvements to the housing system, including launching the Find Housing online tool to make it easier for applicants to connect with housing options that meet their needs, redesigning the rent supplement program to support more households, provide flexibility to tenants, and provide a temporary benefit to working households, simplifying the definition of income used for rent setting and prioritization to assist the Albertans who are most in need, setting housing management bodies up for success as they take on bigger roles in local housing delivery, and providing incentives via regulation for housing providers and new partners to take over ownership of affordable housing properties where it makes sense. The department's next steps under the strategy include continuing to invest in housing digital services to improve data and reporting for partners and ministry staff, developing an enhanced capital maintenance and redevelopment plan for all government-owned assets, as well as working with seniors lodge providers to implement recommendations to government to expand seniors lodges and facilities to keep up with increased growth and demand.
Thank you. Back to MLA Mary Renaud.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. So as you know, Albertans, well, we know this, they need affordable housing. They also need accessible housing. So people with disabilities were labeled a target group of the government's affordable housing strategy. So I'm really interested to hear from the department what strategies are underway. So what strategies has the ministry undertaken to address the target needs? And, you know, alongside that, does the department have any disaggregated data on the accessibility of affordable housing in Alberta?
Alberta's government certainly understands the necessity for accessible housing options as they continue to support people with disabilities in Alberta to find affordable housing units that meet their needs. Approximately 5,000 units in the government's affordable housing portfolio are barrier-free. For all new builds, the government aims to meet or exceed building code requirements. Alberta's government works with partners to address the unique needs of specific groups, including LGBTQ2S+ people, Indigenous peoples, immigrants, women and children fleeing violence, seniors, people with disabilities. I'm going to turn it to my colleague to provide a little bit more detail on the specific builds.
Excellent, thank you, Deputy. There are, of our almost 36,000, approximately currently 14% are what we would consider to be fully barrier-free. That would include in our senior self-contained units 1,285, or approximately 9%. Of the seniors lodge program, approximately 3,232, or 29%, are barrier-free. And within community housing, we have approximately 3.5%, or 358, that are considered barrier-free at the moment. We do, as part of the CMR program, part of the betterment of the units is to, when we do suite renewals and other things, is to improve the accessibility of units. So that would include removing carpet and putting in smooth, non-transition flooring, looking at things we can do with door handles. You can imagine a lot of our units are built in the 1970s, and we have those accordion-style doors and other sorts of things that aren't extremely accessible. So we do make improvements as well. Should there be sufficient demand in area, or we're starting to see a large demand for fully accessible units, one of the eligible expenses we do under suite renewals is to convert units into fully accessible units. So we have a number of those projects going on as well. So it is a priority, and we're excited to continue to work to house disabled Albertans.
Okay, well, just as a follow-up, maybe you can provide some clarity for me. So you said we have 5,000 accessible units, or barrier-free? No, accessible, you said. 5,000 accessible units, barrier-free, 5,000 barrier-free units. And 3.5% of the barrier-free units are in community?
In our community housing program, 3.5% currently are, yes.
So 3.5% of 5,000 units are in community housing?
No.
And the rest, so I'm confused, so the rest are in like lodges and those kinds of things?
Just I can give you the numbers again. So it's 3.5% of the community housing units. So there are 1,285 barrier-free units in our senior self-contained program, which is just like community housing, but aimed at those 65 plus. There are 3,232 barrier-free units in the Seniors Lodge program. So Seniors Lodge, I like to call it lovingly like it's university dorms for seniors. So it's for those who are functionally independent coming forward, and then 358 units inside our community housing program. So the percentages don't relate to the 5,000 number, they relate to the total of the entire thing. So that's how we get to our approximate 5,000 units.
Oh, okay. MLA Armstrong Hamanek.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, through you. As previously mentioned, both the strategy and the review panel are mentioned on page 2 of the report. Aside from providing background information on the goals of the department with regard to affordable housing, can the department explain any other reason those pieces of work are relevant to today's discussion?
Thank you. Yes, I certainly can. As mentioned, as I may have mentioned, the 2020 Affordable Housing Review Panel directed the Government of Alberta to improve its approach to capital maintenance funding. This included the establishment of an expedited process for project approvals and setting benchmark timelines for project approvals. As a result, the Stronger Foundation strategy committed to developing a maintenance and redevelopment plan for all government-owned assets. Action 5.3 under the strategy is to develop a 5-year maintenance and redevelopment plan for all government-owned assets and approve CMR processes.
Thank you. And also, Chair. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead if you have follow-up.
Chair, through you again to the ministry. Prior to the audit report, has the department undertaken any work on these items?
Thank you for the question. The department's work on improving capital maintenance is not new, since it was identified as an area of focus in the 2020 panel report and in Stronger Foundations. The department has been working behind the scenes to make improvements. In spring 2022, the department contracted a consultant to review the CMR process, prioritization process, and every aspect of the department's approach to CMR. In January of 2023, the department accepted 12 of the recommendations made by the consultant, rejected 2, and conditionally accepted 1. In fiscal year 23-24, the department was pleased to report some significant improvements in approval timelines and a simplification of the procurement process. This has led to more competitive pricing and faster turnaround times of vacant suites, from 3 months to 33 days. The CMR team has also been working hard behind the scenes to improve the training for housing providers, implement building condition assessments, and more. Then in the fall 2024, the department hired a consultant to begin work on the long-term CMR strategy, beginning with stakeholder engagement. Their work is currently ongoing.
Thank you. MLA Renaud.
Thank you. So my first question, I asked about what strategies the department or the ministry was undertaking to address their own target group in their affordable housing strategy. So my question was, what's underway? So is there anything being done to identify the need for accessible or barrier-free housing? And what's going on there to address, your own report says this is the target group, so I'm curious to know what's underway.
And sorry, I get more excited about to get you some of the numbers. Just in terms of what's on our way, so through the Affordable Housing Partnership Program is our new build program that we move forward. So all of those would have to meet the building code standard of at least 10%, but because we partner with CMHC and the funding that comes through, often we're aiming for 20 to 30% to be accessible units, including the barrier-free process. The new lodges that we're building, as we build new lodges out, they are being built barrier-free moving forward. We also have a needs assessment process that we work with municipalities that looks at what is the need for housing in there, and then that process informs how we make awards for new capital construction going forward as well. So you do get, as part of that, the part of the new build, we really are focusing on those target populations moving forward. As you can imagine, we have a large legacy stock that's been in place for many years, and so we are working on improving and upgrading that through our CMR process. But that takes time as we go through there to address a number of other issues. But going forward, that's where we're going, and we're seeing a lot more accessible units reflecting the time.
So just as a follow-up to that, so since the 2021, I think it was affordable housing, the strategy, how many barrier-free or accessible units have been added to the housing stock?
So it would be a minimum of the 10%, and so since that time, we've completed approximately 3,500 beds or new builds. So it would be a minimum of 350, but it is above that because a number of those aim for senior lodges and other places going forward.
MLA Yao, this question and follow-up.
Thank you so much for that, Chair. First off, I think it's important that we do give our Auditor General, Mr. Doug Wiley, and his entire team accommodations for this report. It's a good report, and I have to tell you, I do find a lot of the points concerning. I think what any average Albertan wants out there is a organization, government services that apply reasonable business practices to its work and ensuring that the work is done in a responsible fashion. Now, that said, you have 28,000 facilities, 80 housing management orgs. I mean, that's a lot. And each one of those HMOs have about 35 facilities based on your numbers. So I do recognize that that's a large number. It's very unwieldy, but we still ask that these government departments apply these things to the best of their ability. So I guess I want to understand more about this. So the department, again, plays a key role in overseeing the housing operators across the province. And I mean, as we all know, that this oversight is critical to ensuring that our affordable housing services are delivered effectively, consistently, in alignment with provincial standards and expectations. So my question is, can the DM provide more background about the relationship between the government and housing operators? Because my assumption is, even though you might not be getting these reports, you should be able to pick up a phone or send an email and have those answers in 24 hours for any facility. I think that would be reasonable, assuming this. Because I do have concerns about the answer you gave previously. I agree with my good friend from Edmonton Gold Bar. That wasn't a satisfactory answer as to why these inspections were canceled or stopped. So that is my question. Can you provide more background between the relationship between you and the housing operators, and how do you work together to ensure timely and responsive delivery of services?
Thank you.
Of this committee, that member come together to hold department accountable. With that, DM.
Thank you. The relationship between government and housing providers is governed primarily through the Alberta Housing Act, which establishes the authority of the Alberta Social Housing Corporation and housing management bodies, or HMBs. For the committee's reference, HMBs are also referred to as housing providers or housing operators. HMBs are established by ministerial authority under the Alberta Housing Act and manage affordable housing programs on behalf of the government. Programs include the Community Housing Program, the Senior Self-Contained Program, the Seniors Lodge Program, and the Rent Assist program. Many HMBs operate government-owned buildings, but many buildings are also owned by the HMB or municipalities. The department provides HMBs with operating funding to run provincial affordable housing programs, as well as funding for capital maintenance and renewal to improve government-owned housing assets. The department also provides HMBs with resources and training to help ensure their operators are in line with government legislation, regulation, policies, and procedures. On CMR specifically, we've been working to update training and resources to better support housing providers through the capital maintenance and renewal program process. I'd like to turn it over to my colleague who works directly with the housing management bodies and can tell you a little bit more about the sort of the day-to-day interactions that he might have with the HMB.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. And just to Mr. Chair, in response to the honourable member's question, just he talked about the within 24 hours and quick. Absolutely, we have an emergency process that gets right down to that. So we are in daily contact with the housing management providers. So should something come up or there become a significant issue, it's dealt with. Any of the minor issues, there is an operational maintenance budget. So any minor issues that pop up, the operators have the authority to go ahead and do that completely and to deal with that as we go forward. And just the other further part of your question, just around the pandemic and the building condition assessment reports. So they were, last time we did receive the full set was in 2019, hence the data there. The 2021s were started, but were not completed as a result of that part of the pandemic. So that's where we had the gap in there, just to further answer that part of the question for you.
Thank you. You have a follow-up? Emilio.
Yes, sir. Sorry. No, thank you for that. And that's great that you're governed by the management body operations administration regulation. But that said, how do you ensure that operators are compliant? Maybe you're undermanned. Can you give us an idea how many people are within the department are there? How many are tasked with overseeing our housing management operators and bodies and these facilities?
Thank you for the question. Maybe I could start and just talk about a little bit about as you said, the compliance framework, and then I'll turn it to my colleague to talk more specifically about the data, the numbers. Department staff conduct reviews of operator records. If they discover non-compliance to the Alberta Housing Act, they issue reports requiring corrective action plans from operators. A dedicated team uses data analytics and financial reporting to assess governance and escalate serious issues. Boards must include members with relatable expertise in housing, finance, governance, and the populations they serve. The department recommends term limits, public at large members, and standardized appointments to improve accountability. With respect to I'll turn it now to my colleague, and he can talk a little bit more about our staffing complement.
Yeah, thank you very much. So we have approximately 35 folks who are focused on the capital, on our capital program, as well as we have another 20 or so folks who also provide additional assistance directly to the housing management bodies. That would be directly on the capital, and then on the operating side through the ministry would be our approximate FTE count. We also have regular oversight and training programs with all of the employees. So each of the housing management bodies is different, as you can imagine, depending again on the local circumstances, and they have a great degree of staffing and expertise as well in order to be able to complete the work that is required.
Thank you. Emily Schmidt.
Well, thank you. And I also want to start off by thanking the member from Fort McMurray, Wood Buffalo? Is it? Okay, good. For going off script and asking some relevant questions here at Public Accounts. I appreciate his dedication to finding out some useful information. In response to the answer that the department just gave to the member, we found out that the department issues corrective action plans to housing management operators. I'm just curious, since 2019-2020, how many corrective action plans were issued? How many have been addressed to the satisfaction of the department? And how many are outstanding? And in addition, what was the nature of those corrective action plans?
So thank you very much. So we do issue corrective action plans. They would vary again depending on the nature of the action. So all repairs have to be done to get things up to code and to building code. So again, some of it would be that depending on the nature of the repair that was done, it might not have been fully done to code. So often when you do repairs, inspectors come in and they suggest that you do slightly different things, or you have to move an electrical outlet here, you have to move that there. So it would relate to any of the things potentially done through there. We've issued some other corrective things, just again, in regards to were they following all the rules correctly, how they were moving forward and going forward. So there has not been a significant number of corrective actions going, and we are satisfied to date that our operators are complying with that as we go forward. So we have not found serious instances of legislative noncompliance going forward. They've largely been small operational issues that we've just asked them to make some tweaks on.
So the department said that some of those corrective action plans are related to capital maintenance and renewal that were not up to standard, as if that weren't a big deal. How many corrective action plans were issued because maintenance and renewal was not up to standard, and how many have been completed? This is since 2019-2020.
Since 2019-2020.
Yeah.
I'll have to work and get into the specific number. We'll get that for you here in a few minutes.
Thank you. We will go back to MLA Yao for another set of question and follow-up.
Thank you so much for that, Chair. I greatly appreciate this opportunity. And then again, thanks to the Ministry for attending here and answering all of our questions. So I'm curious about how you allocate funding, because I'm guessing you play a big role in how the government distributes its funding through its different branches. And if I might just reiterate something here, or not reiterate, but I'm the chair of the Northern Alberta Development Council, and as such, I was tasked with evaluating the concerns of the North. And a big concern is the funding allocations to northern communities. And so I guess my question is understanding how you guys measure how you invest in these different projects. Do you have like a guide or a template, some sort of grading formula to assess the conditions of the buildings and the facilities that you correlate to these reviews to ensure that the recommendations that you give on investments into these different projects is warranted and responsible? And again, it's about just applying some basic business principles to this and ensuring that it's allocated responsibly, or if there's other things that impact how you invest money into these different regions, like is there a regional formula for this, as an example? And yeah, I just want to understand a little bit more about how you give recommendations on what facilities require funding for maintenance and even development. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. While we do certainly provide funding all across the province, we don't divide up our funding envelope regionally, so there's no separate funding envelope for the North. In terms of how our funding is is accessed. Housing management bodies identify capital maintenance and renewal needs within their portfolios, and each HMB prepares a business plan, including a prioritized list with budget, timeline, and scope. Submissions are then reviewed, are first reviewed by the HMB's housing advisor, and then forwarded to the CMR project manager, the program manager, and the program manager then consolidates these submissions into a master list of evaluation. The consolidated list is then reviewed by an evaluation committee comprised of CMR program staff, and the projects are prioritized using sort of the weighted criteria that I spoke to earlier. HMBs are consulted to confirm selections and ensure accuracy, and the final prioritization list is submitted to Treasury Board and Finance for review and approval under our capital plan. Did you want to? No. Okay.
Member Yao. You're muted.
No follow-up, thank you.
Okay. MLA Schmidt.
So at the time the department stopped reporting the facility condition index as the measure for facility condition, it reported deferred maintenance liabilities at $1 billion. Can the department tell us what the current estimated deferred liabilities for Alberta Social Housing Corporation are?
Yeah, so the deferred maintenance liability remains relatively the same. It hasn't changed significantly since then. It's still just over $1 billion.
Over $1 billion. Okay. Now, can the department tell us since 2019, 2020, because I can't remember. The department continues to review, and then it reviews your reviews, and then you submit the reviews of the reviews to be reviewed. One of the reviews that the department has done on social housing has recommended that when a facility can no longer be maintained and repaired, that it be sold off. I'm just wondering, since 2019, 2020, how many units has Alberta Social Housing Corporation sold? How many new units has it built? And how were the decisions made to determine which units would be sold and who they were, and how were the buyers selected?
So happy to answer that. So since 2019-20, we've completed approximately 3,700 new units. And I can give you I'll give you the buildings that closed since 2022 or have been sold off or in the process of being sold. So since 2022, we've closed the York Creek Lodge in Blairmore, and that was that building was closed because of age, but it was not closed until a replacement lodge in Coleman was opened, which included both a lodge and Type B continuing care. We have closed Piper Creek Lodge in Red Deer. That building was closed when the Crimson Lodge was constructed in Red Deer. We have closed Bridges Community Living Foundation is a group that runs it. Centennial Kiwanis Court was closed in Red Deer. This building was closed due to age of the building. All tenants have been rehoused in other buildings in the area. It is currently closed, or it is currently scheduled for demolition, and then it will be subject to a public process to use that land to rebuild seniors housing in Red Deer. So there will be an open and public process for that. The Silvera Lodge was closed in Calgary when the Gilcrest Commons Lodge was opened. That property has not yet been sold. There was an RFP process for redevelopment opportunities. So I think it was an RFEQI process that went out. That did not result in any significant proposals that were very good. So it's back, and still the government still owns it. We've also closed Father Felis in Mundare. and it was closed due to vacancy issues, primarily that made it non-operational. In terms of additional projects that have been sold, we had acquired during the Slave Lake fires a medical clinic in Slave Lake. We attempted to repurpose that into a couple of different facilities. It was sold off on the open market through a public sale. We also have sold. We've also sold a piece of land in Camrose that we were intending to use for land. It was sold to the municipality of Camrose for municipal purposes, so it was originally sold to us for use for a new seniors project. We did not need it going forward. We've also sold a residence in Picture Butte to the town of Picture Butte, who wished to use it for municipal buildings. And we've attempted to sell the Eric Cormack Center here in Edmonton. It was on sale through a open and transparent process, and that building was unsuccessful again. The valuations that came back for redevelopment opportunities were not sufficiently gone forward on that. Yeah, so that would be sort of the list of what we've kind of sold. There.
MLA Jennifer Johnson.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you for to the team for sharing all your information with us and for this report today. So looking at the auditor's report on page 5, there is a section titled "No Support for Prioritization." The beginning of the section reads, "To direct funding to the highest priority work, the department reviews and prioritizes capital maintenance projects requested by housing operators. However, we noted the department does not have documented support for how it prioritized the projects. So first, would the department be able to explain what exactly this means? And second, what steps has the department taken to rectify this lack of documentation? Are there future steps being planned?"
Thank you. The auditor did not find errors in how the department prioritized projects. The issue was how it documented the decisions. The department's decisions were guided by clear criteria and internal expertise, but the records were not always detailed enough to show that to external reviewers. The department has since strengthened its documentation process with standardized tools, clear procedures, and real-time tracking in its internal database. The overall every project list goes through multiple layers of review, and the audit findings were about transparency and documentation, not the decision quality. And the department has taken concrete steps to address that gap. The concrete steps include developing detailed step-by-step procedures for recording project evaluations and funding decisions, ensuring consistency and transparency in how projects are assessed. Standardized tools such as prioritization templates, evaluation logs, and procurement risk worksheets are now used to make sure every decisions are traceable and clearly documented. The department also enhanced its use of its internal database to capture prioritization results and decision points in real time, providing both accuracy and accountability. Staff have received training to reinforce consistent application of these documentation requirements, helping embed these practices across the program. Beyond documentation, the department has introduced checks and balances to ensure prioritization decisions are sound and aligned with government priorities. Project lists are reviewed by both housing advisors and CMR program staff before finalization. Evaluation committees apply a consistent scoring model based on Alberta Infrastructure's weighted criteria and of the weighted criteria. Finally, Treasury Board and Finance provides external oversight by reviewing the final prioritized list as part of the capital plan approval process. Again, I would like to thank the auditor for the recommendation and want to reiterate that the auditor's findings demonstrated lack of documentation to which we've turned our attention.
Thank you, MLA Johnson. You have a follow-up?
No, just thank you, through you, Mr. Chair, to the team and to the Auditor General also for the report. Thank you.
MLA Martin Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just want to follow up on the department's response to my last question, and I appreciate the detailed breakdown of properties that have been sold. Some of them were replaced, some of them were not replaced. It's not clear whether it's a one-for-one unit replacement. I'm just looking for a net new number of units that Alberta Social Housing Corporation has constructed since 2019, 2020, and whether or not that increase, if it has increased, has kept up with population growth here in Alberta.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Since 2019, approximately 3,700 new units have been added to the housing stock.
I just want to remind the Deputy Minister that my question was net new units. So because you've bought and sold, so this is 3,700 net new units?
Approximately, yes.
Okay. And, yeah, so I know, Mr. Chair, I know that I'm pushing the boundaries a little bit, but I just didn't get an answer to the second question, was whether or not that increase in units kept up with population growth here in Alberta.
So again, we are, what you'll see is we also have an approximately 3,700 plus under development currently now. So those are the number of net new units that have opened. However, there's more going. So we are, as per the Stronger Foundation, working to expand the capacity of the affordable housing system by 25,000 over the next 10 years. And again, part of that is with new builds. We've also brought on a lot of new rent supplement units, which allow Albertans to more immediately access affordable housing solutions, especially in periods where we saw sort of a softer rental market. So it's not sort of necessarily a linear progression, because it takes time in the pipeline for these units to come online. So we are building, and we're building at the extremely fast pace. In order to try and keep up with the population growth. So the goal of the strategy, and we remain on track to meet or exceed the goals laid out in the Stronger Foundation strategy.
Thank you. MLA Sawyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to the ministry, as someone who's first getting eyes on this, I really appreciate well done on your report. One of your recommendations was to improve the oversight measures. The report outlines a lack of maintenance strategy on page 4. And on page 2, it is noted that the department engaged consultation to review the capital maintenance and rental program. So I'm just wondering, why did the department feel the review was necessary in 2022? Would be the first half of my question.
Thank you. The review is tied to the 2020 Affordable Housing Review Panel. The panel identified capital maintenance funding as an issue for government. As I previously highlighted, recommendation 15 from the panel was to direct the Government of Alberta to improve its approach to capital maintenance funding, including the establishment of an expedited process for project approvals and setting benchmark timelines for project approvals. In response, the government's 10-year affordable housing strategy included Action 5.3 to develop a 5-year maintenance and redevelopment plan for all government-owned assets and improve CMR processes. The department knew that in order to address the panel's recommendations and developing a capital maintenance renewal strategy, a thorough review of the program was essential. The review helped to identify areas that were working and areas for improvement.
Thank you. MLA Sawyer, you have a follow-up?
Yes, thanks. Just with respect to those, the review and the outcomes, has the department adopted any of those recommendations? If so,
Mr. Chair, the review made 15 recommendations. The department accepted 12, conditionally accepted 2, and declined 1. Many of these are already being implemented, and I'm happy to go through the main outcomes. First, the review emphasized the importance of maintaining adequate staffing levels to manage requests across nearly 3,000 government-owned buildings. This recommendation was accepted and is currently being actioned. To streamline procurement, it was recommended that the funding threshold for internal approvals of CMR contracts be increased. This change is also moving forward. The review highlighted the need for operational funding to help housing providers better define project scope before applying for capital funding. This is now underway. Training and support for housing operators was another focus. The department is developing and distributing clear training materials and offering regular sessions to help operators understand how to submit projects and documentation for review. A pilot project to consolidate procurement for suite rentals was completed successfully, and expansion of this approach is now in progress to maximize available funding. On the data side, the review called for a framework to better track building systems, upgrades, and repairs. Improvements to internal data collection practices are also being explored to ensure accuracy in building and equipment records. Finally, the review reinforced the importance of using building condition assessments to provide a more data-driven understanding of buildings' health, of buildings' maintenance needs. These recommendations are helping to shape a more efficient, transparent, and responsive approach to capital maintenance and renewal across the portfolio.
No.
Mr. Chair. In 2019, the UCP government reported it supported 2,090 units of special needs housing. And in 2025, UCP government, their annual report stated that it supported more than 2,000 units for individuals with special needs, and that was in the 2024-25 annual report. So in 5 years, it's unclear to me how that's changed. One is specific, one is not. And I wanted to add to, when we met during budget estimates, and one of my questions in successive years has been like, how many accessible units are in Alberta? And the minister was very clear and told me 10,000. And today, and that would be in Hansard, and today I'm hearing 5,000. So I think it's really clear that, or it's really important that we're really clear with numbers. So how many are congregate, sort of in lodges or seniors lodges, and how many are really community living? Because those are two very different things. As you can imagine, people with disability, their first choice would not be to live in a lodge. And so I guess my question is, in the 5 years, what has been the difference in the special needs housing? So we've got one number that really isn't clear at all.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just in terms of the evolution under the special needs, so those categories are, that's a pretty broad category of housing, and those are not necessarily, and for the most part, not government-owned issues. They were built through, largely through federal grants back in the 1970s and the early 1980s through their affordable housing funding. And so that we acquired those, or the oversight of those grants, as part of the National Housing Strategy suite of agreements with the federal government. So the reason you see the guidance doesn't mean the units have disappeared, or they're not there, or they're not still a mission-focused organization. It's just they're not under the agreement anymore. So those agreements expired after 25 years of the lifespan. So that's why you see the number sort of drop from and around there. So.
Okay. Is it possible to get a listing of all of the units in the province? So, I mean, there's 5,000 geographically, like where they are located. I mean, the department doesn't seem to have a mechanism to assess the need for accessibility or wait lists. This government doesn't seem to be interested in maintaining wait lists of needs. So I'm wondering, is there the ability to get a list of where these units are, which are congregate, which are community, and where specifically they are?
Yeah, so if you go onto the website under findhousing.ab.ca, that will allow you to go through the tool and to see a list of all of the properties, including which buildings have accessible units and which ones don't.
Okay, so there is no place to just go to look
Moving
for...
on, MLA Sawyer.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Chair, I have a cough starting. We see that this report was published in November 2024, and on page 8, it notes that it examined processes that were in place April 1st. Oh, Mr. Chair, you might have to skip me.
Sorry about that. I guess Emily Roswell can take that question.
I'll take that on for you. Sorry about your coughing there. Okay, like she was saying, you see the report was published November 24. On page 8, it notes that it examined processes that were in place between April 1st of 2021 and March 31st of 2023, and the auditor made several recommendations and findings. Can the department tell us if it was a surprise by any of the findings and recommendations made within the report or raised by the auditor?
Mr. Chair, the department was pleased to see many of the auditor's recommendations aligned with measures that were already underway and recommended by the review the government undertook in 2022. Government's top priority is the safety and security of residents living in their buildings, and the department appreciates the work undertaken by the Office of the Auditor General to ensure their affordable housing units are solid and reliable. The auditor's report reinforces that the department was already on the right track to improve our processes and documentation for CMR.
I understand. Just looking at, your report is that you expect to have the recommendations completed by 2027. Are you still on track for that, or how are you making out on the recommendations? Are you on schedule?
So I think we've made certainly made strides to upgrade and improve our government-owned affordable housing units to ensure that they are safe and available now and into the future. There are a number of issues already identified through the 2020 review that the department has been tackling. Those initiatives include improving training and support for housing providers, improving documentation and processes, developing a long-term strategy, and implementing building condition assessments. Again, the department appreciates the auditor's report for their recommendations and reinforcing that we're moving in the right directions. And specifically, yes, we are on track to complete the recommendations by 2027.
Thank you, Emily. Schmidt.
Yeah, thank you. So I just want to follow up with one of the responses that I got from the department. So in the 6 years since the department stopped reporting on its facility conditions, it built 3,700 new units. The department declined to answer my question about whether or not that met up with population growth, but in 2020, we note that there were 19,000 households on the wait list for subsidized housing at that time. And Deloitte did an assessment for Canada. Deloitte did a Canada-wide assessment in 2023 that determined that Alberta needs over 40,000 social housing units today. So I'm just curious why the number 3,700 new units says that they're on track to meet their goals, and whether or not the department has any plans to meet the core housing need of Albertans through developing new units with the Alberta Social Housing Corporation.
Thank you again for the question. So the reason the 25,000 number was selected back in 2021 was in order to bring up Alberta to the national average per capita in terms of was considered to be affordable housing units as nationally defined, to bring us up to the national average. So that's what we're measuring our progress against. So as I mentioned, we've created just over 3,700 net new units since 2019. There's an additional approximately 4,500, 4,800 that are under construction currently, and also since that time, since 2021, we've added 4,160 rental assistance units. So that's how we're making, and that's how we can say we're well on the way to achieving that goal of 25,000. We're about halfway through, and so far we're just over half of our way to that goal in terms of in flight or in construction.
So a follow-up then to that question, what is the timeline for completing the additional housing units that are under construction and for making available the rent subsidy units that the department says? When will Albertans be able to move into those places?
So again, there will be an additional 13,000 by the year 2031, and so each building would have a different, each building will have a different sort of timeline in terms of when it would open and get going. But right now, like I said, we've got about 4,200 scheduled. Just about every month, we have a new unit, a new building coming on somewhere in the province, and so we're very excited, with the progress we're making. There's a lot of really good new units coming on, just about in every corner of the province. And again, those units are all selected because I know there's some other questions earlier around the needs assessment. So we do needs assessments with each of the communities to ensure that we're building the right types of units in the right places. To make sure that we are providing as many homes as possible. In addition, one of the focuses through the CMR process was to get any of those units that had been vacant due to deferred maintenance back online and operational, and we've been very successful in getting those units back up to speed here in the last couple of years.
Emily Van Dyken.
Good, thank you, Chair. My questions are with regards to the Auditor General's report on page 7. And I guess I'm struggling to understand why we are so focused on what's called deferred maintenance when I think a lot of it is deferred maintenance and renewal. Like in the note on that page 7, it says deferred maintenance is the practice of postponing maintenance activities. As we look at facilities and assets, there's a need to continually maintain them, whether it's changing light bulbs or replacing dysfunctional faucets or the like. That's maintenance, but it looks to me like a lot of this is under a renewal of facilities, and yet we call it deferred maintenance. So if I could get some clarity on why it's just referred to as deferred maintenance. Is that a government thing? Is that just from the Auditor General's report? Why is it not looked at as deferred maintenance and renewal? Because the Auditor General found that many of the housing facilities fair and poor ratings are due to deferred maintenance. And so are we suggesting that the operators are not attending to a leaking water line or a dysfunctional lighting system, a dysfunctional alarm system? And what work has been done to reduce this deferred maintenance, if it's actually that? And has there been a reduction in the poor ratings then?
I think question relates both to Auditor General and Department. If Auditor General wants to weigh in, sure.
The department can go first, and then I certainly will supplement, Chair.
Okay, Department.
So the honourable member is correct. Deferred maintenance is when you delay fixing or maintaining something that could be taken care of now. Deferred maintenance isn't inherently negative, and it doesn't inherently make government buildings less functional. It is, however, about making informed choices based on priorities, risks, and available resources. So the department continues to prioritize investments in CMR funding that focus on longevity and habitability of the buildings and the units people call home. In 2022, the CMR 3-year budget was $85 million. In 2023, it was $94 million. And in 2024, it was $121 million. So most recently, Budget 2025 allocated more than $130 million over 3 years Increased investment is having an impact on our buildings. In 2019, our buildings were rated in fair condition on average. I'm pleased to share that that following our ongoing building condition assessments, the average condition of our building continues to be rated as fair. Part of our strategy has been to prioritize suite renewals because they quickly return uninhabitable units to safe and livable condition. I think this is the fastest way to expand access to housing without the cost or delay of new builds. These projects tackle critical health and safety and accessibility issues head on. They are cost effective, extend asset life, and reduce pressure on the wait list. It's about making the most of limited capital to deliver the greatest impact. So I'll turn it to my colleague to talk a little bit more about the CMR from his perspective.
Yeah, thank you very much, Deputy. And thank you very much, Deputy. And just, I would say, I understand sort of when we talk about renewal, a lot of it is in relation to renewal, especially when we do the significant capital upgrades inside our suites to renew them and get them back up to sort of standard. So after suite renewals usually occur whenever we need to upgrade for accessibility, or we need to do betterments within inside the unit after someone has moved out. So sometimes the units are left in a state of disrepair, and if any of you have had the opportunity to be a landlord before, not all tenants take great care of the units that they reside in, and so we use that to do not only the sort of maintenance on the surface, but also the upgrades and the other betterments that are required to modernize a suite. So if some of our tenants are quite long tenured, and when they do move out, we take the opportunity there. So there is an element of renewal to that as well. And then through our capital program, we also then do what we would consider to be a much more significant renewal, which would be potentially to taking down old buildings and building new ones on that spot, or densifying there from there. So.
Thank you, Chair, Committee. Through you to the member, no, that is not our terminology. It's fairly recognized as a terminology. And in fact, I think we're citing what the department reported in their ministry annual report, and I think they even used the term deferred maintenance. Would it yeah, I'm not going to get too much into the theory, but there's a capital maintenance concept theory, which is assets are acquired to provide services or service delivery, the production of goods into the future. And this capital maintenance concept theory is that you have to reinvest in those capital assets to be able to maintain the existing service delivery as expected by a program or whatever a particular initiative is, whether it's you're producing products. So that's really what it represents, is where the investments or the reinvestment into those assets have not been made to the desired level or to the expected level that would be required to maintain the service delivery of either a program or the production of a service or good. So I'm not too sure of the exact history of that coined term, deferred maintenance. You might recall it. You might want to call it renewal. The point is that there's measurements that are made looking at assets to maintain service delivery. And the measurements, when they're determined that reinvestment is not made, then it is referred to as deferred. In other words, the reinvestments have not kept pace with what's required to maintain the asset to be able to provide the existing expected service delivery. So hopefully that helps, member, through the chair.
Member, you have follow-up?
Yeah, thank you very much. And I would agree with the Auditor General on the general philosophy of maintenance and renewal and keeping assets in a usable form. We heard from the department about dollars that were allocated towards maintenance and renewal. We heard from also that a lot of the dollars are into renewal of suites, upgrading of suites. I guess I'm still trying to understand if we have seen a significant decline or a decline anyways with regards to units in poor condition. Yeah, we saw where during the period of 2015 to 2020 in the report, it identifies um, a reduction of suites in good condition and an increase of suites in poor condition. I think it would still show that everything was in average or fair condition. So I'm hoping that there's some indication as to what we have as assets in poor condition, and have we seen a reduction over the last 5 years, I guess, with regards to assets that are considered in poor condition.
Yeah, thank you for the honourable member through the chair for the question. So when the last sort of in public index measured indicated that on average our units were in the fair condition, that remains to be the same, and the initial results from our completed building condition assessment process that we restarted in 2024 would indicate that we've not seen a significant rise in the number in poor conditions. So the units have remained, our maintenance program has maintained a relative stability in terms of the conditions of the units. So we haven't made a lot of strides forward, but we haven't really gone backwards either. We've sort of stayed in there. And as I mentioned earlier, part of that is because when you look at the FCI measurement, the part of that's influenced also by construction costs. So with significant construction inflation and replace costs, that also can, even if the building, you know, if all things stayed the same with a boiler, the replacement cost of the boiler gets more, the FCI goes down, even if the boiler is still in perfect working condition. And that's part of the reason why we're working with a consultant currently to come up with a bit better of a performance measure that actually reflects the usability of the building and how the building's being used, not just sort of a mathematical formula.
Good, thank you. That provides a lot of clarity. Thank you.
Auditor General, you wanted to comment?
Well, just to clarify for the committee that we, through our work, we're not identifying what measure should be used. What we were identifying was that there was a gap of a measure being used, and I'm pleased to hear that the department is looking at rectifying that, and by 2027 we'll have new metrics that will help the member answer the question of what are the conditions, improving, status quo, staying the same, and also what is the metric with respect to either, if you want to coin it, renewal or deferred maintenance, what is happening in that regard. Again, back to our primary purpose of this engagement was we had $2.3 billion worth of assets. Those assets need to be maintained to be able to provide service delivery to achieve the objectives of the programs. And that's what we were looking at. What were the tools and mechanisms and processes that were being utilized to achieve that? And so again, just to clarify, we were not being specific with respect to one metric or another. It was rather identify a metric if you're going to continue not using this one, and develop another one that will help you to manage your assets so that you can achieve your program objectives. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We have 8 minutes left. Let's try to get through as many questions as we want. Emily Schmidt.
Thank you. And if I could just comment, I'm not as pleased as the Auditor General on the so-called progress that the department is making. This facility condition index was ended in 2019. They say they're going to have something in response in 2027. That means a child born in 2019 will be learning fractions in school by the time that this condition assessment process will be in place. Like, the next generation of Auditor Generals will be looking at this. That's how long it's taking. And I don't think the people of Alberta should be satisfied with with such a glacial pace that the government is taking to put these conditions in place. But I want to follow up on one of the questions that, one of the responses that the department gave to Member Van Dyken. And that was, on the one hand, the department has said that they are spending money on maintaining and renewing units that were vacant because they were uninhabitable. And on the other hand, they're saying that the number of units in poor condition have remained about the same since 2019, 2020. So what is the net change in uninhabitable units since 2019, 2020? How many uninhabitable units have been made habitable since 2019, 2020? And how many previously habitable units became uninhabitable in that time? And what's the net difference? Is it positive or negative?
Yeah, so over the last, I only have the numbers for the last 3 years, so I don't know what between 2019 and 20, but we are positive of 400 additional units back online that otherwise would have been offline for repairs. That number will fluctuate month to month as suites turn over and renews, but overall, we made an investment a couple years ago in approximately $16 million, which brought us to about 400 net new suites online.
So then, is the department's position then that the number, why is the number of poor units staying stable? If you're investing in these things, why is this number not changing?
Yeah, so in part it has to do with the math formula. So the FCI, that's the reason why we're discontinuing, is the FCI index in and of itself is just an indexed number, and it doesn't necessarily mean about the number of units in actually, like, a person on the street or a man on the street or would say about what do we mean by poor condition. So it doesn't talk about the livability. It just talks about the level of maintenance there, and the level of maintenance required to bring it up, and that's also influenced by construction cost escalation. So, if you look at it from what I mean by a unit that would be offline and brought online is actually a vacant unit that is not being used, and so we had a number of those across that. There was not there was a period of time, prior to when I arrived in this portfolio in 2020, that there was less maintenance and we saw units come offline, and so there was a decision to make investment to bring those units back online, and they would have been offline for any number of reasons in relation to maintenance. So the actual FCI index doesn't tell you a lot about the number of units that would be available or not available. It's just a mathematical formula, and so that's why we're really working hard to come up with a performance measure that gives you a better indication of how to do that. So your FCI, when you look at it across, is used in a lot of jurisdictions as an infrastructure building quality measure. But the difference between a residential building and sort of a large building like the building we're in here today, it's a totally different sort of equation. And so that's why we really want to come up with something that's really better, that will give Albertans an indication of not only what condition are our units in, but how does that impact the quality of life of Albertans. And so that's what we're working on.
Van Dyken.
Hey, thank you, Chair. One question I do have, and it's with regards to when we started the meeting, it was outlined that there's, I believe it was over 27,000 housing units, affordable housing units within Alberta. The $2.3 billion number was used for asset value. There are 80 different operators, I believe it was, that are operating these units. The question I have is, does the provincial government essentially have the lion's share of affordable housing within the province, or are there other operators that provide affordable housing outside of the scope of the 27,000 housing units?
Thank you through the chair, honorable member, for the question. So the province does have, as you mentioned, a significant stock of affordable housing that we own. There are a lot of other people who own and provide affordable housing. So there's nothing stopping anyone in the province from running an affordable housing program or offering housing that is below market value. And so municipalities own a lot. Calgary and Edmonton both both own some. A lot of non-for-profits also own and operate affordable housing, some of which is funded by government and some of which it's not. So the numbers you referenced sort of in your preamble, those are the ones that government either owns or funds. So in total in our portfolio, we support about 110,000 Albertans, but there is another whole segment of groups who, mission-based organizations or value-based organizations, as well as municipalities, operate affordable housing in the province.
Okay, thank you for that clarity. And the only other question I have is with regards to support for tenants in units that, like we talk about deferred maintenance, if there's units that are deferred maintenance, is there support being provided for tenants in deferred maintenance units versus units that are requiring renewals? Because I would hope that tenants in deferred maintenance units, their immediate needs are being taken care of, and would like to hear if you're confident that that is happening.
Thank you. The department recognizes that tenants living in units with deferred maintenance may experience unique challenges, so the department prioritizes projects that directly impact the habitability, such as roofing, heating, ventilation, suite renewals. Efforts are underway to improve planning and data systems to reduce the occurrence and duration of deferred maintenance, and the department is committed to strengthening its process to ensure that maintenance needs are being addressed more proactively. David, do you want to talk a little bit more about the tenants specifically?
So each of our housing management bodies has to have a tenant complaint process where this is identified, and it goes all the way up through to the board. And so any tenant who has any complaint, like with any other landlord, is able to say that, there's a problem in here, I've got a draft in my window, there's mold, and that's immediately identified, flagged, and brought up through our process. So we do have a process to identify any of those, extraordinary circumstances for individuals to make sure we remedy that as fast as possible.
Thank you. And I think that's all we have for today, and I would like to thank officials from the ministry for their participation and Auditor General for their participation in responding to committee members' questions. We ask that any outstanding question be responded to in writing within 30 days and forwarded to committee clerk. And at this point, department officials may leave. We still have some more business, and we will take a 5-minute break and get back to the remaining items on the agenda. Following the format that was established for our audit focus meetings, the final 15 minutes of an audit focus meeting is allotted for the committee to determine if it would like to hold a future meeting to deliberate on making recommendation related to the audit report to the Assembly. The subcommittee has recommended that these deliberation meetings be scheduled shortly after the audit focus meeting and for at least 1 hour. So I would suggest that a meeting could be held this Friday, October 17, if members are interested, and I will open the floor to members to debate whether they would like to have a deliberation meeting, and if so, whether the Friday 17 works for the members. Emily Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would support your suggestion. I would move support that we do meet on October 17th. I won't. Oh, we do.
If you want to move a motion.
Yeah. So I will move. Thank you, committee staff, for reading my mind. That I move that the Standing Committee on Public Accounts hold a meeting to deliberate on its review of the Auditor General's processes to assess and manage the condition of affordable housing on October 17th, 2025.
Do we need a seconder for this motion? No. So any discussion on the motion? Motivate us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the opportunity that we had today to ask the department about the Auditor General's report and its response, but I'm very concerned about the department's lack of substantive information that they provided us today in terms of assessing the condition of its buildings and conducting the maintenance and repair on particularly health and safety issues in a timely fashion. You know, when the Auditor General released their report, in their response to some media questions, they did highlight the fact that there are potential health and safety issues for tenants that may be going unaddressed because the department doesn't have adequate information to assess the condition of its facilities. I tried to ask the department about how it determined its maintenance requests in the 24-25 year, and they gave us essentially a song and dance that said, well, of course we consider health and safety, but we also consider a number of other factors, and we're fully confident that we're doing the right thing, but failed to provide any substantive evidence that that's true, or that even the prioritization processes that were in place when the Auditor General did the review had substantively changed. And so I think it's really important to get at that. The other thing that was really frustrating to me was that the timelines for implementing the Auditor General's recommendations, because not only did the Auditor General recommend these things a year ago, we found out today that there have been reviews and then reviews of those reviews, and then we've reviewed the reviews of the reviews that have been done by the department, and it's still set for 2027 to be implemented, maybe. You know, this kind of timeline gives the department ample opportunity to conduct 3 or 4 more reviews in the meantime, and they'll probably come up with some justification for delaying the implementation of the Auditor General's recommendations. The department seems very intent on kicking these recommendations down the road as far as they can, and I think it's a really important role that we serve as the Public Accounts Committee to push the department to do better and come up with some recommendations much more quickly than 2027. So I think that those things could be considered at the deliberation meeting on October 17th, and I hope that all members agree with me and vote to have this meeting on that date.
Thank you. Any other member wants to weigh in?
Yeah, I'll speak that a little bit. I don't have a problem with the doing the deliberations. The date might be a problem. I was just wondering if we could have it as soon as possible, but if we had an option, like do a poll, there's members on my side that just can't be here on that day.
If I understand you correctly, you're in favor of having a deliberation meeting, but scheduling is an issue.
Yeah, scheduling is an issue for us there, so I'm good with what you're saying. It's and this is part of why we do this, right? Is to if there's a report that goes back to the legislature, then that's what we should do.
Mover will be okay with a friendly amendment to kind of add on a date.
Sorry,
works.
if you don't mind, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So maybe a friendly amendment that the motion be amended by striking out the date October 17th, 2025, and say on a date as determined by the chair after hearing the availability of members.
In consultation.
Yeah, in consultation with members.
I'm okay with that, but I just want to make sure that we have this meeting before the next regularly scheduled meeting of public accounts on the 28th, so, yeah. Okay.
Like next week sometime would be great.
Sure.
Need to pass amendment. I think it's a friendly amendment, but just for the process sake, I will ask that question. Any discussion on the amendment, and if not, all in favor of the amendment?
You're good?
All those online in favor of the amendment? Anyone?
Did you read it out possibly?
Yes.
Would you like me to, Mr.
Sure.
Chair? Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the amendment would be that the motion be amended by striking out October 17th, 2025, and inserting on a date as determined by the chair after consulting with committee members.
So, any discussion?
What's so significant about October 17th?
It's not. It's the 17th. We had members that couldn't make it, so we have to pick a different date. That's what we're saying.
So, seeing no more discussion, I will ask one more time that all those in favor of the amendment moved by MLA Roswell in the room.
Aye.
All those in favor online?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? So amendment is carried. Now we are back on the main motion. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion as amended? Aye. Online?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed online? Seeing none, motion is carried. Now, the exciting part. At the committee's May 6 meeting, committee passed a motion to conduct its third audit focus meeting on November 18 and chose to review one of the two reports of the Auditor General which had not yet been released. The reports were on Alberta Health Services procurement and contracting practices, and the report on DynaLife procurement and contracting practices. The Auditor General wrote a letter to the committee on October 6th stating that neither report would be ready for release in time for our review on November 18. This letter was posted on committee's internal site for members. As such, the committee will need to change focus for our meeting on November 18. First, the committee will need to rescind the motion it passed at its May 6 meeting, to select either the AHS or DynaLife report for review on November 18. The committee clerk has prepared some wording we could use to rescind that motion, and we'll display that on the screen. So, could a member move this motion?
I'd like to move that the Standing Committee on Public Accounts rescind the following motion carried on May 6, 2025. Moved by Honorable Mr. Smith that the Standing Committee on Public Accounts at its 2025 fall session audit focus meeting, A, review the Auditor General's anticipated audit report on Alberta Health Services procurement practice if it was tabled before October 10th, 2025, or if a report is not tabled by that date, review the Auditor General's anticipated audit report on DynaLife procurement practices, and invite officials from the Ministry of Health and other entities as appropriate as determined by the Chair and Deputy Chair to speak to the report under review and present their respective action plans if available.
Thank you. Since member was here, so you moved that, so we will replace, moved by Emily Roswell. First,
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, that was the original motion, so I'm a bit confused. So any discussion on the motion?
So I'm just wondering if the Auditor General can give us a progress update on the DynaLife report and the Alberta Health Services procurement practices reports?
The former, I can give you more of a concrete update. I'll give you an update on both, though, members through the chair. The DynaLife, we are very close. In fact, we're so close, we're just going to miss the opportunity to be able to get through the committee by a few days. But as you are all aware, we follow our mandate. We take our mandate seriously, and there is a process that we have to follow when it comes time to publicly releasing reports. We're in the process of vetting our reports, the DynaLife report, I should say, and so I would say that report will be coming out very, very shortly once that process is completed. On the procurement examination, that's a little bit more complicated. That is an examination, and as I think we've said all the way along, that differs from your normal audit in the sense of an audit is fairly tight and concrete with respect to the scoping, and you can schedule that a little bit more closely than you can with an examination. An examination, essentially, we follow the evidence and where the evidence takes us. We are getting close on that one, but we are still doing some more under oath interviews. We have not finished that process, and we want to make sure that the work is done properly, thoroughly, so that the members and all Albertans can rely on our work and the credibility of our work. So We're just not at a stage yet, member, through the chair, to give you a specific timeline there, but the Dine on Life is very, very close, and we are looking at next month sometime. Thank you.
Just to follow up, if I could then, what I'm hearing the Auditor General say is that we won't meet the November 18th timeline, but we could meet a different timeline later in November or possibly early December. Is that correct?
That is a possibility. That assumes that there are no issues with respect to the process as we move forward now. My advice, and when I had an opportunity to meet with the chair and the deputy chair and the clerk when, pardon me, I had to bring forward this unfortunate news, my advice was that at this stage we bring forward an alternate for that November 18th date, and I believe we have one that we'll talk about in a few minutes. So my advice would be, I wouldn't hate to come back to this committee a second time and say we have to go through rescinding motions to yet again meet. So I would suggest at this time, member, if you're looking to see if you can bring that in, that we leave that for now. As I say, we're planning and all hands are on deck. I want to assure the committee of that, and I want to personally apologize. I know that this is an inconvenience for the committee, and I apologize for that. But again, I want to make sure that our work is followed all of the processes before we release it publicly. So, I don't know if that answers your question, member, or not. We're doing the best we can. That's all I can say.
Thank you. I will come back to you on this point, but before that, if anybody else has any comments on.
Yeah, I think we'd like to do them as soon as we could. And, I would, where my head's at on that one is next spring, we'll have two scheduled. And we could do both of them is what I'd like to be able to do if we got them ready.
Any comments from folks joining online? Seeing none, I will go back to Auditor General and ask that we want to kind of continue this audit focus meeting process, and we would like to replace, I guess, with another audit, and if there is any audit that you would recommend, and also
We can get into that after we have to vote on this.
also which ministry officials and other entities you would like us to invite. That will be the question I will ask you to answer, and I will give you some time to think about while we vote on this motion. So we have a motion on the floor, and the question I will ask, all those in favor of this, rescinding this motion as put forward by MLA Roswell. Those joining us online?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
So motion is carried. Now, back to Auditor General for his recommendation for any other audit that we may consider on November 18, and which officials or entities we should be inviting.
Thank you, Chair and committee members. We recently released our report on the child care subsidy and grant program. We believe that that would be a suitable alternative at this stage. The work is done. The work is public. It's an important program. We think it's of importance to this committee and to all Albertans. Under this program in 23-24, there was $1.1 billion was allocated to this program. There were some inherent risks, and that's why we undertook the audit, and those relate to potentially leading parents to be overpaying for child care or educators being undercompensated, and those are the two areas of funding under this program. They were the two key areas. We did the work, and we did come up with three key findings. I won't get into those details now, but We did make 2 recommendations as well. It's also worth noting that this particular program shifted several times during our audit, and significant changes were made to the delivery of the program as well. So again, I think that adds to the interest here. And just to let everyone know, in February 2024, the program moved from the Minister of Children and Family Services to the Minister of Jobs, Economy and Trade. And then again in May of 2025, it was transferred again, this time to the Department of Education and Childcare. Now, notwithstanding these changes of who's delivering it, we believe that all of the recommendations remain relevant, and that in this particular case, Chair and committee members, the department that would be coming forward would be now the Department of Education and Childcare. That department has accepted all of the recommendations as well. So that would be our submission. We believe it would be a suitable candidate at this time to fill that time space. Thank you.
We'll open the floor for discussion, comments. Emily Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for recognizing my subtle request to be heard. I support the Auditor General's recommendation that we look at the Child Care Supplement report that he submitted. I guess my concern, having been through this circus before with the child care program, that we assure that we have the people who are responsible for conducting the program at the table when we review this. When we looked at the issue of food poisoning in child care settings, initially the people who had made the decision or had failed to uphold the safety said that they were no longer responsible because that program had shifted to another department. And then when that other department was here, we found some variation of, well, we weren't there when this happened, and so we can't provide you full information. I want to avoid that from happening again, and so I don't know how we avoid that, but when we invite officials, make sure that people who had worked on those programs through the entire time that the Auditor General looked at it, be here to answer questions from the department, because it's not acceptable that somebody not answer a question because they weren't there at the time that the issue arose.
I agree. I remember that process that we went through, and that's what happened. So it was frustrating. The answers will be answered to the report, the auditor's report, and it'll be up to the department or the ministry, I guess, to make sure people are here that can answer those questions. That's what you're asking is, if we can just make sure that we don't get non-answers or answers that say, well, we weren't there, so we can't answer that question. That's your goal, right? Yeah. So I think we emphasize to the ministry and the department to make sure there's people there to answer to the report.
Sorry, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in the invitation that the chair sends out to the ministry, there could be a line put in there specifically saying that the committee would like the committee would like participants to be able to respond to these questions, and then it's in the official invitation to the ministry.
Any comments from members joining online? Seeing none, we have the wording of the motion, and I think I do remember that meeting, and that should not be a process to avoid questions from the members. And with your indulgence, members' indulgence, I would ask that we include that line in my invitation, that we expect officials be able to answer all questions that are within the scope of this audit. whether they were in charge at that time or not. So can a member move this motion? So moved by MLA Roswell.
The Standing Committee of Public Accounts, A, review the report of the Auditor General entitled Child Care Subsidy and Grants Program Performance on November 18th, 2025, and invite officials from the Ministry of Education and Child Care to speak to the report under review and present their respective action plans if available.
Any discussion on the motion?
Well, if I may, Chair.
Sure.
So I don't see in this motion how it covers off officials other than officials from Ministry of Education and Childcare to speak. So I guess I'm just wondering if we have to, you know, with regards to the concern of not being able to speak to the report, it might be other entities that other individuals from other ministries that are qualified to speak to the report. Is there a way to improve that motion to ensure that that transpires?
This motion is sufficient because under the law, this ministry is now responsible for this program. And that's why we said what we will add is that we will tell them that we expect that they be able to answer questions that are within the scope of this report. So they are the one legally responsible, so they should be able to answer our questions. We will clarify our expectations.
Fair enough. Thank you, Chair.
Seeing no other comments, discussion, all in favor of this motion? All in favor joining us online?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? I hope nobody said aye when I asked. Anyone opposed? Thank you. The motion is carried. I understand it's a short notice, but now that we have decided on a report for review on November 18, do members have any requests for additional research they may like in preparation of our meeting to review the Auditor General's Child Care Subsidy and Grant Program Performance Audit? And do any member have any motion for additional research? Additional research can be directed to you by end of the day today or something?
No, sorry, Mr. Chair. Any additional research has to be a decision of the committee, and so the committee would have to move a motion and pass that today.
I can ask them to move a motion that a member move that any requests for additional research be sent to committee clerk by end of day tomorrow, October 15. Can a member move that?
We do have one that we'd like.
Motion?
A motion, yeah.
Sure,
Okay.
go ahead.
I think what I'd like to do is get a jurisdictional scan of some other provinces in order to see how they managed it relative to us in Alberta, and so I'd like to do some research relative to that. So there's a motion for that. So this is open. I'll read it out. If people want to change it a little bit, that'll be fine. That the Standing Committee on Public Accounts direct the Legislative Assembly Office to prepare in advance of the committee's review of the Auditor General's Child Care Subsidy and Grants Program Performance Audit Report, a cross-jurisdictional comparison of budget information of provincially funded child care subsidy and grant programs in British Columbia, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, in effect at any time during the past 10 years, as well as information on the child care funding agreements those provinces had with the federal government.
Any discussion on the motion? Do we have?
Chair, if we could just amend it to include all provinces in Canada, I think the focus on just the western provinces is a little bit too narrow.
So we have an amendment, and committee clerk can figure out.
That's a friendly amendment then?
Yeah.
Okay. So make it all provinces then.
If it's a friendly amendment, we can.
Chair, if I may.
Sure.
I guess the question would be is the time frame allow good research to be done? If I can't speak to that, but like we are working with a relatively short time frame for the LAO to prepare in advance of the committee's review. So if there's confirmation or if there's no concern from LAO research that it will not inhibit their ability to properly prepare, then I'm more than willing to agree to the amendment, but I guess that's the only question I would have.
I think I see Philip Meslin's hand up. He would be eager to answer this question, but we do have two researchers sitting in the room. They both look very excited.
Yeah, Chair, if I may speak to this point, because Mr. Van Dyken raises a good point about the time frame. Like, it's going to be tight for both the ministry to get prepared, but also for us to do our research. So I think that additional sort of jurisdictions to compare would be okay, but I'm wondering if we could just beg the indulgence of the committee to do the best we can when it comes to that, even though they pass a motion to that effect, and we can single out the most important jurisdictions in terms of the comparators, and then just use our judgment, and then to try to do everything if we can, but then just to, if there's running short of time, we can just sort of use our judgment to identify the jurisdictions that have the similar programs and similar issues or interesting things to raise to the committee, so that the committee can do its work the best that it can, if that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. I see quote Ellingson, Emily Ellingson.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to add on to what Mr. Messelin just said, that in all of our interjurisdictional comparisons in the past, we've always included Ontario. And so it would seem strange to me that even when we were prioritizing to make sure that we at the very least include Ontario. But I also think it's a good idea to pick at least one from, like, say, the Atlantic provinces, because they may have a very different approach, right? Like, maybe different cultural approach. And I think it could be important for us to learn from that.
Any other comment?
If I may?
Sure, Glenn.
I guess I would like to reiterate that, the amendment should encompass that LAO include other relevant information from jurisdictions outside of the ones that have been highlighted, and giving them the latitude to prepare a report that will give us I would like to see very relevant information that we can actually develop and discuss conversation around relative information versus possibly information that is over and above the mandate of this review.
Noted.
I think we might have some wording. I'm just going to post that right now.
Good. I think it looks pretty good. It says in other relevant Canadian provinces.
We've got enough to research to figure that out. And,
Give research a little bit flexibility, and if it's good with Member Schmidt.
Does it work for you, Philip, on that? Oh, are you good with that, Philip? Does that
Yeah, I
give you
think
the
that-
flexibility?
Sorry, yeah, through the chair, sure. Mr. Rosewell, I think that does give flexibility. We can use our judgment that way to identify those issues in the relevant provinces that would be the best comparators and the most interesting for the committee to do its work. I think it would work. Thanks.
Thank you, Phillips. Unless there are any other comments, I will go to the question. All those in favor of this amendment to the original motion?
Aye.
Joe's joining us online.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Seeing none, that amendment is carried. Now back on the main motion, unless there are any burning comments, we can go straight to the question. All those in favor of the motion as amended?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion is carried. Now, the report on 2025 CPAC CSCOLA conference. That was the exciting part I was referring to earlier. So at our May 6th meeting, the committee passed a motion to send the chair and the deputy chair and to LAO staff to 2025 CCPAC CSCOLA conference held from September 7 to 9 in Regina. CCPAC CSCOLA is an annual joint conference of Canadian Council of Public Accounts Committees and the Canadian Council of Legislative Auditors that allows PAC members, staff, and Auditor General from across Canada to come together and share the work their public account committees does and discuss best practices. I attended the conference along with MLA Rosewell, the Deputy Chair of the committee, Committee Clerk Warren Huffman, and Research Officer Abdul Burgri. The committee asked that we provide an oral report to the committee on our experience and lesson learned at the conference. And we are happy to do that. The conference began with an opportunity for each jurisdiction to speak about a practice that they feel their PAC does well. Alberta's subject was effective follow-up of audit recommendations. Assistant Auditor General Patty Hayes and I spoke about the process that the Office of the Auditor General goes through for auditing ministries and making recommendations, as well as their follow-up process. I also spoke about how our PAC currently reviews ministries' annual report and relevant reports and recommendation of Auditor General, and how the committee has begun a new process of conducting audit-focused meetings to review audit reports of the Auditor General on a more consistent basis. The Deputy Chair participated in a panel discussion entitled Public Accounts 101. It covered the review process of the public accounts of the province, and the Deputy Chair was asked questions about best practices for reviewing ministry annual reports. Some of the topics that panel discussed were related to key areas of focus when asking questions, example of good questions, how the Office of Auditor General can help PAC, and challenges when reviewing the public accounts. The second business session was on encouraging action through follow-ups, during which we heard information about how some jurisdictions follow up with ministries after their PAC meetings. The third session was on the importance of performance audits. For this session, we heard how some Auditor General chose their audits and how they present their reports and how they prioritize those audits. The final business session was on cross-party collaboration, and we heard from two former elected officials who were chair and deputy chair of their PACs. They spoke candidly about their experiences with building a culture of non-partisanship in their committees. The Canadian Audit and Accountability Foundation also hosted a PAC leadership workshop in Regina, which took place the day after the CCPAC conference, which the deputy chair and I attended. The workshop was for PAC chairs and deputy chairs to learn how their leadership can help to craft more meaningful meetings through cross-party collaboration and a committee focus on improved public administration. They had a panel where David Christopherson and Kevin Sorensen, who are former Federal Public Account Committee chairs, reflected on their time as PAC leaders. They discussed the need for all members to be clear on the mandate of the PAC, which is to hold departments to account and not focused on the merits of the government policy. They said that the PAC should focus on how money was spent in a program, what the policy objectives were, how those objectives were achieved, and where the value for taxpayer dollar was achieved. The CAF has said that they would like to hold similar workshops at future conferences. If that is the case, the committee may want to include the workshops in the wording of the committee's motion to attend the conference in the future. Before I get into the breakdown of some of the things we learned at the conference, I would like to give Mr. Roswell a chance to speak about his experience at the conference.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. The one thing that I discovered there from CAF that what they told us is like they go all over the world and within the Commonwealth to try to help people with their public accounts committees. And what they said was how the reputation of Canada is very good. Like UK is kind of the model, and but Canada is very much respected, and they were asked to go all over the place, Africa and wherever. They went to a lot of places, and so I think the reputation, although we think we're dysfunctional sometimes, but the reputation of Canada is really good. So, but there's always improvements, and there's neat things that we can do and learn from other places. So, and we'll be talking about that when we get the chance here.
Thank you. We came away from this year's conference having learned a number of things, and we would like to highlight a few takeaways that OverPAC may want to consider implementing here in Alberta. I'm using we because Deputy Chair and I have discussed this report before. Just to be clear, we're just providing information today for discussion and to gather the committee's feedback, input about it. We are not looking to make any decision today. We would like to get the general feeling of the committee about these topics and then perhaps hold a subcommittee meeting in the coming weeks and return with some concrete recommendation on how to proceed. First is collaborative work, purpose statement. One thing that we heard again and again at the CPAC conference is that the more collaborative a public account committee is, the more efficient and effective it can be in holding departments to account. A number of PAC met in camera prior to the meeting to discuss and organize the question that the committee would like to ask at the meeting, and the member agreed to lines of questioning that will be asked at the meeting. In some committees, these questions were randomly assigned to the members, meaning that any member could ask any question. Members may still ask other questions that are not on the list, but this collaboration helps the committee be less partisan and focus on getting to the root of issues. One of our aspirational goal is for the committee to work more collaboratively, and one small step in that direction that we could look at is a practice followed by Prince Edward Island PAC, which is to read a purpose statement at the beginning of each meeting. The Deputy Chair and I liked the idea when we heard about it, and here was that statement that Standing Committee on Public Account is dedicated to improving public administration in partnership with Auditor General. The committee examines the administration of government policy, not the merits of it. The committee strives to achieve consensus in its decision whenever possible. Members take a nonpartisan approach to the work of the committee. If the committee was interested in considering a similar approach, the message would be tailored to fit our Alberta PAC, with an intent to show ministries and the public how the committee operates and to help establish a culture of collaboration for the committee. If we were to choose to develop a similar purpose statement, it could include things like the committee mandate, what the committee wants to achieve, that the committee works in partnership with Auditor General, that the committee examines the administration of government policy, not merits, that the committee strives to achieve consensus in its decision wherever possible, and the member take a non-partisan approach to the work of the committee. I would like to ask the MLA Roswell if he has anything to add about this.
Yeah, it was interesting, the one province, I forget which one it was, but it was, they actually, like you said, they come and they get the questions and they just assign them, right? And we have talked about that here. We haven't chosen to do that, but it's what we talked about there was, the gotcha questions and then the snowflake questions, right? And trying to get better at that. And thanks to Tanny Yao, we're maybe heading that way. So that was good. But I think I felt like we've improved over this last year, and I think we can continue to do that if we keep having goodwill here.
The second theme was requesting ministry's implementation plan. When the Auditor General performs an audit and makes recommendation to a ministry or entity, the Office of Auditor General receives an implementation plan on the recommendation that are to be implemented. These plans are usually received within 2 to 3 months of the audit and are typically more robust than the status update on recommendation that we currently receive. The committee may want to consider requesting that these implementation plans be sent to the committee as well as the Auditor General. I would like to ask if Mr. Wiley has anything to add about this practice.
I support it, Chair and committee members. I think it's a good idea. I think it has merits. As you all know, the practice of that exists within our parliamentary system is the Auditor General makes the recommendations, and it's up to the Public Accounts Committee to hold the government, or the bureaucracy, if you will, the deputies and the ministries and others, to account with the implementation of that. The practice varies across jurisdictions of the involvement of the Public Accounts Committees, but I think it's a great suggestion that you would receive as a committee, pardon me, the implementation plan that the departments or others are proposing, that you could see what we're receiving at the same time or shortly thereafter. I think the better informed the committee is, the better the deliberations will be, and the objective of trying to make improvements will be better achieved with that information. So I know that there was an interest expressed today already with respect to the implementation plans and the timelines of those. So those are all outlined, in that implementation plan that we received. So I think it's a great idea, Chair.
Thank you. The third one was regular follow-up with ministries. At this year conference, we heard a lot about the importance of PAC role in furthering the work of the Auditor General. The Auditor General can conduct reviews on issues and make recommendations about how departments can improve their process. But his office cannot compel a ministry or audited entity to take action on those recommendations. PAC can review the issues reported by the Auditor General and follow up on the recommendation made to the ministries or entities. The committee can further issue its own report and make recommendation that action be taken where the committee sees fit. In some jurisdiction, the PAC will follow up with the ministry to see the progress made on their implementation plan. If the ministry has not made adequate progress or appear to not be following through, the ministry officer could be called back to appear before the committee again and to respond. This helps ensure that the ministry implementation plan is followed and the Auditor General recommendation become implemented. One last thing, then I will open it up for the debate, that these past two conferences have been very interesting and informative. Going forward, we believe that it may benefit the committee if additional committee members have the opportunity to attend CCPAC conference. Typically, the Alberta Public Account has sent the chair and deputy chair along with 2 LAO staff to the conference, but I have seen other jurisdictions send more members of the committee, so we would suggest that perhaps the committee may want to consider expanding our attendance for the next year conference by 2 members, I would suggest, and beyond by offering the opportunity for additional committee members to attend and learn directly from the peers across Canada. So at this point, I would ask if Emily Roswell have any comments and then open up for discussion comments by the members.
Yeah, just some of the differences the different provinces got up. Some provinces, they meet for 2 days, like they have 2 8-hour days, and they go through all the ministries. And that's it, they never meet again, which is, I don't know how you can get focused on stuff. So some only do audit reports. They don't look at the ministries. And then they coordinate with the media to, they involve the media in their discussions, and at times with the release of the reports, so that as soon after the release of the auditor report, you then have the PAC review it, right? Just to kind of, what would you call it, recognize PAC's role in the big process of being the conduit for the Auditor General's recommendations because of what they're enabled to do. One that I thought was odd was in Saskatchewan. They actually get the auditor's report and they either accept or reject the recommendations, which I thought was odd, because, the Auditor Generals have their, like all the education and everything they do, and we read it for an hour, and so I don't like that one, so that one was odd to me, but that's the way they do it. So in the future, I think how we identify which ministries we're going to look at, I think we need to reevaluate that as to maybe it's outstanding recommendations or something like that. And then to your point on, like if we've reviewed it and here's this recommendations, and then maybe in June we have a PAC where we pick our top 3 that didn't seem to make much headway on the recommendations, even after our PAC review, and just ask them for an update or something like that. So these are all just ideas that we might want to consider. And then the other one that, and I asked this one at both of these meetings, is what happens if the department, the ministry, doesn't agree with the recommendation? So some of them listed on their Excel chart as will not implement, right? And just so that they know, and because the auditors weren't really desirous to take have a expiry date on the recommendation. Could be a policy change, could be something that makes that a non-issue, but that would be up to the department to to talk about. So some neat ideas there about that we might consider in the future.
Any other comments, discussion, Member Schmidt?
So, this idea of regular follow-up from the department on some of the things that have come up at PAC is intriguing to me. But I'm not clear, is it just follow-up on the recommendations that the Auditor General has made to the department, or is it follow-up on issues that we find in public accounts that they regularly follow up on?
What I saw was on the recommendations. Doesn't mean we have to do it that way, but I mean that's the recommendations or that's like here's because there's some ministries that have a whole bunch and some that are quite old, right? And we thought, well, maybe we can review them, and then maybe 6 months down the road get an update on how they've done. So it's just been on the recommendations, I think, isn't that right?
Yeah, it wasn't. I think usually ministries, departments, they do come and share their action plan, and it was also about that whether if they said that they would do something in certain time, whether they're following up on that and meeting those deadlines. So tied to that was the idea that whatever detailed action plan they send to Auditor General, that plan be sent to committee members as well, so they can see in detail that what department is supposed to do in a certain time frame, and so that they can be followed up and asked about the progress reports.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, like I'm not opposed to implementing this similar process, but I can think of a couple of other public accounts meetings that we've had recently where we've uncovered issues that the Auditor General didn't really get to that would be interesting. Well, I would find interesting for us to have follow-up on, and the immediate example that comes to mind is this high school in Camrose. When infrastructure was here, we found out that they didn't really do their due diligence in selecting the site. They didn't make sure that whoever said that owned the site actually owned the site, and this caused significant delays and potential cost overruns. That's not an issue that the Auditor General has had a chance to look at yet, but it is something that public accounts uncovered. And I think it would be important for us to follow up on those things as well. So I'm wondering if there was a jurisdiction that had that kind of follow-up, or if we could create a process where we would identify issues that were raised during a public accounts meeting that we could request follow-up on as well. If I may, Chair, just there have been a couple of times when we've submitted questions for written responses, and the written responses haven't really been adequate. They've taken the section from the annual report that is tangentially related to the question that we asked and just cut and paste and responded, and it's just left like that. So, are these responses or are these follow-ups, are they written, or does the department come to the committee for question and answer when they follow up again?
These follow-ups are written follow-ups. That's my understanding. And to your comment, we can discuss what our follow-up process may look like, but that's one thing that we found it quite interesting, and I would say effective as well, to give some teeth to Auditor General's work, that they know that some public account committee is there to hold them to account and ask them for progress.
Yeah, we're not making any decisions today. So, but that's good input. So.
No, and I appreciate the answers. Thank you.
Any other comments? Seeing none, I guess we can hold some subcommittee meeting to discuss these things and bring forward some recommendation to the committee in future to consider. With that, moving on to other business, written responses to questions asked at our meeting during the spring session were received from the following ministries. Municipal Affairs on April 15, Environment and Protected Areas from our April 29 meeting to review the Auditor General's Surface Water Management Report, Arts, Culture and Status of Women on May 6th, Transportation and Economic Corridors on May 30. The responses were made available to the members on the committee's internal site, and following our usual practice, they will be made publicly available on the Assembly website. Are there any other item for discussion under other business? Date of next meeting. The next meeting, regularly scheduled meeting of the committee, will be on Tuesday, October 28, 2025, with the Ministry of Indigenous Relations, and we will canvass with members for a meeting for deliberating on today's meeting in coming days. At this point, I will call for a motion to adjourn. Would a member move that the October 14, 2025 meeting of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts be adjourned? So moved by MLA Renault. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Those joining us online, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? This meeting stands adjourned.